Deva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avekaryoyam uchyate tasmad evam viditpenam nato sochitamarasi.
It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body.
Atachenam nityajatam nityam vamanyasematam tatapitam mahabaho nenam sochitamarasi.
If, however, you think the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason as to lament, O mighty arms.
Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasman apirhariyate natam sochitamarasi.
One who has taken this birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again before. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament.
Avyaktani bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktani nanani eva tatra kapari devana.
Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe.
No, all created beings. Text 28.
All created beings and unmanifested in their being, manifested in their interim state and unmanifested again when annihilated. So what needs is there for lamentation?
Ascharyavat pashyati kashchidenam ascharyavat vadati tateva chanya ascharyavat namanya shinoti strutvapi enam vedana chaiva kaschit.
Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all.
Dehi nityam avadyoyam nehe sarvasya bharata tasvat sarvani bhutani natam sochetamarasi.
A descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being.
Swadharmam api chaveksya navikame pitumarasi dharmadhyudyachayonyat shatrat yasya navedyate.
Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation.
Yadachaya chopapanam swargadwaram apavritam sukhina kshatriya parta labante yudamidrisham.
O Brita, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening from them the doors of the heavenly planet.
Ata chetam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi Tata swadharmam kritim cha hitpa papam avakshasi.
If, however, you do not perform the religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duty and thus lose your reputation as a fighter.
Akritim chapi bhutani katayanti devyayam sambhavitasya chakritir maranad atirchiyate.
People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor of worth
Is worse.
is worse than death.
Bhayadranadupparatam mamshante tam maharatha yesham tatvam bahumato putvayasya silagavam.
The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant.
Avatyavadamshcha bahun vadishyanti tavahitaha nindantastava samarthyam tato duka taram nukem.
Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you?
Hato va prakshasi swargam jitva va bhokshase mahim tasmad uttishta konteya yudhaya krita nishchaya.
O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planet, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight.
Sukha duke same kritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yudhaya yasva naivam papam avakshasi.
Do the fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin.
Esate bihita sankhe Udya yoge to imam shinu Udya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahashyasi.
Thus far I have described this knowledge to you should through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works.
Neha bhikrama nashosti pratyavayo navedyate swalpam api asya dharmasya charate mahato bhayat.
In the endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect from the most dangerous type of fear.
Vyavasyami buddhe ekeha kurunandana mahusakahyanantascha buddhayo vyayashinam.
Those who are on the path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one, a beloved child of the chorus. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is mainly many branched.
Yomimam pushpitam vacham pravadanti pashchitaha vedavadarata parta nanyan ashtiti vadinaha kamat sarga para janma karma falapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogeshwarya gatim prati.
Men of small knowledge are very much attached to flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets. Recent resulted good birth, power of, and so forth, being desirous of saintly sense gratification on and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this.
Bhogeshwarya Pashaktanam Daya Parita Chetasam Vyavashyatmika Buddhi Samadona Vidhiyate.
In the mind of those who are too attached to the sense, enjoyment, and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, they resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. It does not take place.
Triguna Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana Nidvanvo Nitya Satvasto Niryogashema Atmavan.
Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, and Arjuna become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities, are from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self.
Yavanata Udapane Sarvata Sam Plotodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha.
All purpose served by small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them.
Karmani epatikaraste mapaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbur mate sangosa karmani.
You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of actions. Never consider yourself and the cause of the result of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty.
Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyakva dhananjaya siddhi asiddhya samo bhutva samatmam yoga uchyate.
Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga.
Durenahi avaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddho.
I think we are just doing till text 48.
Okay then.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Sudham. Those have beautifully recited the Sanskrit shlokas, and Sacha, you are very beautiful too with English translation. So thank you, both of you. That's a very good example to all of us. Whatever you pursue in Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. So today's verse is actually chapter 2, verse 48, the last one which Sri Dhamma and Saji recited. So if you can just put yourself on mute, those who are not speaking, thank you. Okay. So chapter 2, verse 28, Yogastaha Guru Kamani Sangam Chaitva Dhananjaya Siddhiya Siddhyo Samobhutva Samatan Yoga Uchyate. Okay, Yogastaha, equiposed, Guru, perform, Kamani, your duties, Sangam, attachment, Tyaktva, giving up, Dhananjaya, O Arjuna, Siddhi, Asiddhyo, in success and failure, Samaha, equipoised, Bhuttva, becoming, Samatvam, equanimity, Yoga, Uchyate is called. Sorry, I just read some of the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachments to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, only one can give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna, or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such, he is participating in the Varnashram Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashram Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule of the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. Okay, just read the translation again. Perform your duty equipoised, Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. I recite the invocation prayers. Please recite if you can, along with me. Amayana Timurandasya Gyana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Garve Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakavatam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopeshwara Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastete Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sadadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Charu Swami Tinamine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sanyavadi Pashatyate Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much everyone for joining in. It's we're carrying on Canto 2, sorry, just opening up my page. We're carrying on Chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. And here we have a very important verse. Lord Krishna has recited to Krishna Arjuna, performing your duty to poise, Arjuna abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such a calamity is called yoga. So first of all, we're trying to understand what is that attachment that we all have. We all want to have success in our life. Nobody wants to become a failure, because failure is the cause of, I suppose, infirmity in our lives. And infirmity, as Krishna, as Arjuna says, is worse than death. We all want to be successful, whether it's in family life, whether it's in business life, whether it's in health, in wealth. We're always striving for success. But that success also leads us to happiness. But in the material world, that success isn't always leading to happiness. It's also the cause of distress. So now the word equanimity is very important. Samatvam. Does anybody know what equanimity means? Okay, equanimity is the way of actually understanding or controlling your emotions, being able to control your mind, your senses, from a Krishna conscious point of view. And it's also allowing us to control all attention, difficulties that we may face in our life, the stress. We all go through difficulties in our lives, stressful situation, tension situation. Equanimity is to actually be able to control those difficulties that's arisen due to certain calamities beyond our control. In life, we're always having struggles, whether it's in family life and personal life, whether it's in work situation, whether it's in a situation that's not even concerning us at all. And a lot of it could be a result of not being able to control ourselves in dealing with such a matter. For instance, we can get very impatient very easily. We can become very angry for no reason. We can actually find faults in others for no reason. When we actually want to become the center of attraction or center of attention, we try to push aside everybody else's personal requirements and just depend or wanting our own attention. We have to be very careful in Krishna consciousness that we do not attach ourselves to those kind of a mentality, because that mentality only brings you to the degradation in your spiritual life. Being free from attachment is one of the most important things in our spiritual life. You have to understand Krishna consciousness is not just necessarily understanding that there is a supreme personality of Godhead and believing in Krishna, worshipping Krishna, following the formalities of deity worship, following the formalities of devotional service, without understanding the implications of what it is that we're doing. For instance, in order to become Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada says that you have to become a gentleman. To become a gentleman is understanding how to deal with one another, how to treat somebody nicely, kindly, fairly, not just on a material level, not just on a spiritual level, but also on a material level as well. We're always conditioned by so many activities in our life, but if we don't have those rules and regulations, then we could just make up our own concoctions of what spiritual life is. That's why we have to follow sadhu, shastra, and sangha. If we don't follow these three personalities, then what happens? We start speculating in our spiritual life. And unfortunately, a lot of people do come to that state where they feel that, okay, I don't need a spiritual guide. I don't need a spiritual master. I don't need to read the Shastras. I understand. I'm just attached to Krishna. I don't need anything else. I just want to pray to Krishna. So a long time ago, I recall having a sangha in somebody's house. And Pradyumna Prabhu was kindly given a really nice course on surrender about spiritual masters and the duty of us at surrendering a spiritual master. But one sort of person in the class sort of raised her hand and said, well, why do I need a spiritual leader? I'm happy doing whatever I want. I don't need any sort of guidance. I don't need any guru. I don't need any shastras. So unfortunately, it became quite argumentative because this person was actually seeing that there was no need to follow any scriptures at all. But we can see that sometimes when you don't follow the scriptures, then you start speculating, you're making up your own sort of rules and regulations, which are not actually instructed by the authorities, by the spiritual authorities. As we understand, the guru is supposed to be as good as God. Why is that? Because he's a confidential servitor of the Lord, because he passes that knowledge of how to surrender to Krishna. Until you surrender to a spiritual authority, then you cannot get connection to the spiritual authority, Krishna himself. So just like citizens, we have to abide by government laws. If we do not abide by government laws, there'll be criminal activities going on all over the places. We'll be driving on the wrong sides of the road if we don't follow the motoring rules and regulations. We could create so much havoc in whatever we're doing in our works life if we don't follow health and safety regulations, if we don't follow protocols, if we don't obey the principles of how would I say it, being concerned for one another. If we just become very selfish in our life, then we just become very high in a false ego. From false ego comes pride. From pride, before pride comes a fall in our spiritual life. So those guides, those rules, those regulations to become detached from mundane activities are there for a particular reason. Those reasons are so we can free ourselves and become more absorbed in Krishna consciousness. One of the difficulties in attachment is attaching to the senses. We have the main five senses: touch, taste, smell, hear, sight, etc. We're always conditioned by seeing things which we see as pleasing to ourselves. We want to overindulge ourselves by overeating. Sometimes we want to, do things which are beyond our sort of control because we aren't able to control our mind. So Krishna tells Arjuna to control his mind. When you control the mind becomes your friend. If you aren't able to control the mind becomes your greatest enemy. But then Arjuna is saying, how could you control the mind? For the mind is turbulent, obstinate, very difficult to control. It's easier to control the wind than to control the mind. But Krishna says, for wherever the mind wanders, one must bring it back under the control of self. Because you're controlling that particular mind, you're allowing yourself to focus on activities which are favorable to Krishna consciousness and rejecting things which are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. So it's very important. When we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many, many, many great personalities who have controlled the mind, who have been freed from attachment to success and failure and completely surrendered to Krishna. Right now, Arjuna is asking and arguing with Krishna. Arjuna is arguing with Krishna, I do not want to fight. He's becoming very sentimental. He's becoming attached to his family members, his spiritual master, his grandson, Bhishma Dev, his cousins. But Krishna is telling him that you must abandon these kind of attachments because they only lead to infamy. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are great personalities. Does anybody want to give some sort of names of personalities who have completely surrendered to Krishna during difficult situations?
Kunti Devi.
Thank you. Yes.
Prahlad Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj.
Indra.
Lord Indra, yes. And Lord Indra could also be very selfish because he's picked a quarrel with Lord Vishnu to fight as well. Any other personalities?
Draupadi.
Draupadi.
Draupadi, yes.
Uttara,
Uttara, did you say?
yes.
Okay,
Uttara.
yes. Very good.
His mother, yeah.
Yes. When,
Vishadev,
Bhishma Dev, yes.
Sudama.
Siddhartha Brahmin, yes. Those are very good examples. Thank you so much, everyone. But there was one particular example I was trying to look for, and the name is Ambarish Maharaj. He was a great personality. He was the emperor of the world. He was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, but he was completely detached from his spiritual kingdom. He was detached from his fame. He was detached from his own reverence. He was detached from all the army who served him. He was detached from his wives, family, the wealth, the opulence. He was actually observing a 1 month, actually a year-long fasting. And during the month of Kartik, he was fasting from water completely as well, from no food whatsoever. But it so happened Devarsha Muni came to visit him. And during that time, Devarsha Muni, Lord Ambarish, of course, even though he was fasting and was very weak and fatigued after fasting for a whole year, welcomed Ambarish Maharaj, welcomed Devarsha Muni and told him, please come and take some offerings to Lord Vishnu. And Devarsha Muni said, okay, let me cleanse myself, have a bath in the Ganges, purify myself, then I'll come and take some offering. But in the meantime, the critical moment of the passing of fasting was about to come to an end. So he sort of discussed with the Brahmana priest what I should do. So the Brahmana priest told him, look, take some water. You're not breaking your fast and you're not also committing any offenses as well at the same time. So he took a little water to break his fast. But when Devarsha Muni, by his mystic power, he found out that Ambarish Maharaj had broken his fast and had served and started satisfying himself before he was serving Devarsha Muni, got very angry from the tip of his hair. He threw it down, his eyes red, blaring, and from there the demon of destruction appeared, and I was about to kill Lord Ambarish Maharaj. But of course, Lord Vishnu intervened and he brought the Sudarshan Chakra and killed the demon. But at the same time, he started Devarsha Muni chasing him around the world. So that story goes on, and Devarsha Muni went to Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva to ask for protection, but they all went and said, go to Lord Vishnu. And when he went to Lord Vishnu said, you have committed a great sin to Ambarish Maharaj, he's a great devotee of mine. Go to him and ask for forgiveness. And what did Ambarish Maharaj do when Devarsha Muni asked for forgiveness? He started crying. He said, no, please, you've made absolutely no offenses whatsoever. And that is the quality of a devotee. Even though he's been offended, he feels he's not been offended itself. So when I was mentioning about Ambarish Maharaj, there was a particular reason, because when I was talking about controlling the senses, we all have the 8 senses, 5 senses, and we have the mind and intelligence that we try and utilize in Krishna consciousness. So just see if you can see this. Okay. Can you see this translation?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Sorry if I'm nodding my head from side to side. It's just that I've got a camera in front and I've got to just see the task points. So here's a story, the description about Maharaj Ambarish in Canto 9 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a really beautiful verse, and it's really nice for all of us to meditate and see where we can utilize our senses in different ways in serving Krishna. So the translation, does anybody want to read the translation at all?
can I read it, Prabhuji?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mataji.
Maharaj Ambarisha always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temple, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his senses of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord, and he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. His head is bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaja Ambarisha never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way of to increase attachment for the Lord, and he completely free from all material desires. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So nicely recited. So that actually gives you a background, a sort of overall impression of who Maharaj Ambarish was. You know, when we go to the temple, sometimes we forget, you know, even though we're bowing down, what is it that we're bowing down? We're actually bowing down, reciting in our mind, thinking in our mind, we're touching Krishna's lotus feet. When we're smelling the flowers, we're using our senses of the nose to smell the flowers. When we touch the bodies, embracing the bodies of the Lord's devotees, to get that spiritual connection. So everything, every senses that Krishna, Maharaj Ambarish did, he did it to serve Lord Krishna 24 hours a day, meditating on him. And in doing so, he was becoming increasingly attached to Krishna and detached to the material desires, the senses, and any opulence that he had all the time. Of course, most of us, we have difficulties even thinking of Krishna for more than 10 minutes, even chanting our rounds. But as Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. You know, once you control the mind is one's friend, but one who is unable to control the mind is his greatest enemy. So this is the importance about this particular verse, about becoming equanimity, you know, being free from tension. We all have tension, even in Krishna consciousness. There's disputes among devotees, difficulties that we may have arisen in our lives. But when we depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we actually allow Krishna, please, whatever problem I have, please, you know, there's nothing that's impossible for you to resolve. Please help me. Please help me. If you're not praying for Krishna for a particular reason, although we don't pray for material, personal comfort, but at the same time, Krishna is the Supreme Father, so there's no harm in praying to Krishna to help you and protect you. When Srila Prabhupada was going through difficulties, he would pray to Lord Nrsimhadev, he would pray to his spiritual master, he would pray to Krishna, please help me overcome these difficulties. You know, when we are facing the challenges, when the temple was closing in the 80s and 90s, we prayed, we did lots of harina, we did demonstrations. We cannot just stay silent. We have to keep praying, depending on Krishna. If we don't depend on Krishna, then we're not actually convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're actually thinking, yes, I'm just praying to Krishna because it gives me a bit of reassurance. Somebody's passed away. It's, you know, it gives me a sense of belonging. I feel that the person who I've lost has a better life in his next life. But of course, the most important thing is to purify ourselves, free ourselves from material attachments. And to do that, the verse actually explains a lot about yoga. So what is yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead due to the ever-disturbing senses. We just highlighted that. So nowadays, when we see yoga, we see so many yoga exercise classes, to how to become better in your health, how to get a physical, nice body itself. Of course, they do help you in becoming more focused, your mental health awareness, in having a clearer consciousness in your breathing, your exercise, and better sort of lifestyle. But ultimately, as Krishna explains, there are many yogas in the Bhagavad Gita. It talks about hatha yoga, the breathing exercises, Ashtanga yoga, by control of the body postures, mind, senses, breathing exercises. Once again, it talks about jnana yoga through knowledge. It talks about bhakti yoga. And of course, the most important thing is bhakti yoga, because even in bhakti yoga, you don't need to control your breathing exercises. You don't need to know much about Krishna. All you need to do is have love for Krishna and his devotees, be willing to serve him in such a way that is pleasing to his devotees, pleasing to the spiritual master itself. So once again, there are many sort of examples Krishna explains about Krishna consciousness. Real Krishna consciousness is to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of Krishna himself. In this way, we discharge our duty to Krishna consciousness and allow us to progress in our spiritual life. We always have to look at ways of progressing in our spiritual life. If we become very stagnant and we feel we're comfortable chanting our rounds, waking up in the morning, following certain rules and regulations, what happens? It becomes very monotonous in our life. We're not actually advancing ourselves. But a real devotee of Krishna is actually one who actually preaches the glory of Krishna to Krishna, preaches the glory of Krishna. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna himself. So we have to understand, being very focused in our own spiritual life to our own sort of bubble is great to protect ourselves. But the real Krishna consciousness, the advancement in Krishna consciousness, when you take up that Krishna consciousness, preach to other devotees, how was it that we became Krishna consciousness? By the mercy of the spiritual master, by the mercy of a devotee, giving us the spiritual association, teaching us about Krishna consciousness, teaching us how to offer food to Krishna so it becomes prasad, how to offer everything that we have to Krishna, patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam, everything that we do, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, whatever offerings you have, do that as sort of continue as an offering to Krishna. How did we learn all those things? We learned that by the association of the spiritual master, by the association of the devotees, by reading scriptural books. But the benefit comes when we teach that philosophy to other people as well. Another good example is Bali Maharaj as well. Although he took the throne of Lord Indra and he wanted to become the emperor of the three worlds, due to his opulence, he had hundreds and thousands of people under him. All the demigods had surrendered unto him. You had all the Gandharvas, all the the heavenly planets all surrendered unto him. Because of this opulence, he controlled the heavenly planets, and because of this, the spiritual authorities, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, went to Krishna to ask for protection, and also Aditi, the mother of the demigods, also went to Lord Vishnu to ask for protection. But Lord Vishnu, this is an amazing story. If you read the Canto 8 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Vishnu said, my dear Aditi, although, this is your sons, the demigods that you have given birth to, I would like to protect them, but at the same time, I cannot do anything to them because Bali Maharaj is under the authority of the Brahmanas, and he explains in great detail about the qualities of the Brahmanas, that Krishna is in a catch-22 situation, although he understands the dilemma of Aditi and the demigods, but at the same time, he cannot harm Bali Maharaj because he's under the protection of the Brahmanas. That's how powerful the Brahmanas were. Krishna is actually controlled by his devotees, the gopis, the Brahmanas. But it so happens that he appeared as Lord Vamanadev, and as many of you know the story, the Vamanadev was a very small dwarf. He came to Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj asked him, please ask for whatever you want. And Vamana said, I just want 3 steps. And of course, Shukracharya, Bali Maharaj's spiritual master told him, no, this is Vishnu himself. He's going to come and teach you. But because Lord Vishnu had come, his desire, even though he was the king of the demons, he completely surrendered everything to Vamandev. With one step, he took his step on the material planets. With the second step, he took over the three heavenly planets, the three worldly kingdoms. Another third step, he said, I don't have anywhere to take this third step. And what did Bali Maharaj do? He said, my dear Lord, please give your third step and place them on my head. And that's how surrendered Bali Maharaj was. Even though he was a king of the demons, he controlled his mind, his senses, completely detached himself from his wife, his family, all the material opulence he had gained by defeating the demigods, defeating Lord Indra. And because of that, Lord Vishnu was so pleased with him, and he gave him a planet, a kingdom that is not way above the heavenly planets. And they said that even Ravana came to attack Bali Maharaj, but Vamandev, because as Lord Vishnu, he was protected Bali Maharaj, he kicked the hell of Ravana away. So Ravana could not even touch Bali Maharaj at all. And that was the power of becoming detached in our material life and becoming attached in our spiritual life. Another wonderful example was in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There was a great king, I can't remember his name out of the top of my head. He had several sons, but one of the sons, he was sent to an ashram. But in the meantime, the king was becoming elderly. And while the youngest son was in the ashram, taken care of by all the spiritual authorities there, by the Gurukul teachers, the elderly king divided everything amongst the children. The children realized that the last son, the last brother of theirs, had gone into the ashram, so there was no need to give part of the kingdom to him. So greedily they took all the kingdom for themselves and did not share a portion of that kingdom to the younger son who had stayed in the ashram. When the young boy found out about this, he went back to his father, and the father was very displeased with the behavior of his other sons. So he told the youngest boy, go to this particular place and take shelter of these brahmanas and priests who are performing a yajna right now to please the demigods. So he did that. And from the yajna, after the yajna was completed, he asked for some blessings from the brahmanas who performed the yajna. And the brahmanas gave him all the opulence that was supposed to be offered to the demigods. Here, have this remuneration, and enjoy this wealthy life. And he became even more famous than his own sons. But it so happened that the story behind it, that Lord Shiva, the sacrifice was supposed to be offered to Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva disguised himself, and he went to this young son and said, you cannot take this opulence, that was given to you by the Brahmanas. This actually belongs to me. So then the young son went to the authorities, spiritual authorities, and he said, this sacrifice really actually belongs to Lord Shiva. So the young son said, okay, I'm fine. He completely gave all the offerings to Lord Shiva. And then the Lord Shiva, who was disguised, came forward and revealed himself to the younger son and said, I am very pleased with you because of your surrender of all the attachments to the opulence. You may have these opulence now as you did before. So this shows you some of the wonderful stories. When you detach yourself and attach yourself to Krishna consciousness, allows you to completely have the complete mercy of Lord Krishna himself. Just before I finish off, I'm just quickly just mention to you, if it's not mentioned already, this month we're actually distributing Queen Kunti books. I've been told to pass this message on to everybody. This particular book, Queen Kunti, these are the prayers Lord Kunti says to Lord Krishna just after the Mahabharata scene. The battle of the Kurukshetra is finished, and Lord Kunti is praying, please, Krishna, do not leave, do not go back to Dwarka. Please stay with us in Hastinapura, because without you, everything will fall apart. So this particular book by Queen Kunti is 17 chapters or so. The particular sort of one of the verses or chapters of the book of Queen Kunti is lightening the burden of the world. And then one of the verses says, others say that the world being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and you have appeared to diminish their trouble. So there are all these beautiful verses as showed in the Bhagavatam, but the verses are elaborated by purports, by lectures given by Srila Prabhupada, and then transcribed into this particular book. The books are only £2 each. So if you are able to sponsor a book or take a book and sponsor it, or pass it on to a family, friend, relative, please get in touch with Divya Nam Prabhu or the Sankirtan team. If you're in the Sankirtan Forever, please add your name on to the list of contributors of 10 Queen Kunti books to everyone else. I do apologize for the presentation today. I was told an hour ago to make the presentation. So there's many other things, of course, I would like to have mentioned, but I hope I've covered everything. The main thing is being equipoised in happiness and distress, from victory or defeat, gain or loss, understanding that ultimately all the rewards are for Krishna himself. And if there is any questions or comments anybody would like to make, please do so.
Prabhuji, how do we go about paying for the books and deliveries?
Okay, yeah, sure. So what you can do, if you have any of the team, Sankirtan team leader contacts, we can arrange for the books to be passed to you, and the books are only £2 each. And then we're trying to encourage about 100 devotees to come and sponsor 10 books or purchase 10 books, and then they could sponsor it to their friends, relatives. And then what we could do, arrange for the delivery of the books to your place. And regarding the Lakshmi, you can pass it on to one of the Sankirtan leaders themselves, Nirmal Prabhu, Divyanam Prabhu, or if you come into the temple on a Sunday, there's the Bhadra, Srimad Bhagavatam Bhadra table there. You can always pass the Lakshmi to them as well. But this is a very good opportunity. If you haven't read the verses, they're so beautiful. If I could just spare just 1 second of your time. So this is a very beautiful verse by Queen Kunti as well. Vipadaha Satu Tata Shashva Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanam Yatsyat Apurna Bhavadarshanam. This is verse 8. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and death. So in this life, we're always full of calamities. But Queen Kunti is actually saying, when there's a calamity, I can think of you, Krishna. So in this way, please try and think of this opportunity, this difficulties that we're all facing over the last year. Many of us have gone through difficulties. They've lost loved ones or gone through the difficulties of going to the hospital or catch the virus themselves. So please try and think of it as an opportunity to serve Krishna in such a way that we remember him again and again. I hope that answers your question, Mataji. So if you do want any books, please reach out to the Sankirtan leaders, yeah?
Yes,
And
I do.
don't
But
worry about the Lakshmi.
I don't live here in London. I live in Yorkshire. So I want one book posted to me and rest to go nominated to other people to donate them. So I want to buy 10 books. So
okay, sure.
I didn't know how to do it.
Sure. So I'm not sure if I can. See if I can just share.
Shall I ask Divyanam Prabhuji?
Yeah, you can. If you have Divyanam's number,
Yes, I do.
You could send a message to him, and what he could do. Sorry, I didn't read the messages here. To apologize. If you want to send a message to Divinam Prabhu, please do so, and he'll give you the contact person to speak to. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Any other questions anybody has?
Yes, I've got a question. Hare Krishna. I'll put my
Yeah,
name
Hare
down
Krishna.
for a Sunday, and I'm
Yeah.
contributing for the 10 books. I'm sure Prabhuji said that he's going to be in Trafalgar Square on that day, and we can collect our
Yeah.
books from him. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, you can do. There will be books available because the whole idea is that I think there's about 20 devotees on the list already who volunteer to contribute or distribute 10 books each. So the idea is that they can pick up the books at Trafalgar Square, or if you live in near the manor, by all means, you can always pick it up near the manor or near my home. I live in Bushy, 5 minutes away. You can pick up from my home. Whereabouts do you live?
I live in Essex, so I'll be going to Trafalgar Square on Sunday.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So what I'll do, I'll send a message to Divyanand Prabhu to ensure that there are books, because it'll be quite unfair for all of you to come and then you've sort of volunteered to come forward, taking time to contribute to make sure that the books are there for all of you.
Yeah. I have put my name down. I am one of the 20 people on the list of contributing the Queen Kunti's book. So that's the answer.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Okay.
No. Thank you very much. And I do really sincerely, if you haven't read the Canto 10 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Queen Kunti recites the prayers, if you are able to read this particular book, it's quite a small book. Unfortunately, I don't have one here with me, but if you are able to, actually, I do. Sorry, beg your pardon. It's right in front of me. There's the book itself. You could see it's quite thin, but it's a very good book and has a very, and also, obviously, I'm not being biased, but these are the prayers coming from a lady itself. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're always hearing about the great warriors, Arjuna, Bhishma Dev. We hear about Amarish Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, but there's many sort of stories about lady devotees. So this is a very beautiful book because it's coming from the heart of a lady. So it actually understands what the mind of a lady is, surrendering unto Krishna. Of course, Krishna's topmost devotees were gopis. So ultimately, that's the goal that we all have to reach as well. And by understanding these prayers of Queen Kunti, she's asking Krishna, please, what do I do in these kind of difficulties? How do I overcome them? And it's really nice reading these verses of Queen Kunti's prayers to Krishna. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, everyone, and hope to see you. Well, I'll be doing the chat program tomorrow evening as well. So if there's any other questions from today, please do so. Otherwise, I'll see you on Sunday for Rath Yatra. Hare Krishna, everyone. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.